Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mr. Pad Paramahansa Parividika Acharya. Ashtottara Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parividika Acharya. Ashtottara Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koshti Vaishnavin Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, just give me a second here. All right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Page 415. On this 23rd day of July, 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 9, entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge, text 33 on page 415. 415, actually. Kim Punar Brahmana punya bhakta rajashayas tatha anityam asukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam kim punar brahmana punya bhakta rajashayas anityam asukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam kim punar brahmana punya bhakta rajashayas anityam asukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam kim punar brahmana punya bhakta rajashayas anityam asukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. Kim punam brahmana punya bhakta rajashayas tatha anityam asukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. Kim punar brahmana punya bhakta rajashayas tatha anityam asukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. Anyone on this side want to chant? Kim punar brahmana punya bhakta rajashayas tatha anityam asukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. Ladies? Kim punar brahmana punya bhakta rajashayas tatha anityam asukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. Go ahead, in the back. Kim punar brahmana punya bhakta rajashayas tatha anityam asukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. Kim punar brahmana punya bhakta rajashayas tatha anityam asukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. Kim, how much? Punaha, again. Brahmanaha, brahmanas. Punyaha, righteous. Bhaktaha, devotees. Raja, rishya, saintly kings. Tata, also. Anityam, temporary. Asukham, full of miseries. Lokam, planet. Imam, this. Prapya, gaining. Bhajasva, be engaged in loving service. Mam, unto me. Krishna says to Arjuna, how much more this is so of the righteous Brahmins, the devotees, and the saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. Now, I'm going to read the previous verse, since it's obviously a continuation. And this translation has been revised a little bit. O son of Prita, those who take shelter in me, though they be lowborn, women, Vaishyas, merchants, or Shudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination. How much more this is so of the righteous Brahmins, the devotees, and the saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. Purport. In this material world, there are classifications of people. But after all, this world is not a happy place for anyone. It is clearly stated here, anityam asukham lokam. This world is temporary and full of miseries, not habitable for any sane gentleman. This world is declared by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be temporary and full of miseries. Some philosophers, especially Mayavadi philosophers, say that this world is false. But we can understand from the Bhagavad Gita that the world is not false, it is temporary. There is a difference between temporary and false. This world is temporary, but there is another world which is eternal. This world is miserable, but the other world is eternal and blissful. Arjuna was born in a saintly royal family. To him also the Lord says, "Take to my devotional service and come quickly back to Godhead, back home." Close quote. No one should remain in this temporary world, full as it is with miseries. Everyone should attach himself to the bosom of the Supreme Personality of Godhead so that he can be eternally happy. The devotional service of the Supreme Lord is the only process by which all problems of all classes of men can be solved. Everyone should therefore take to Krishna consciousness and make his life perfect. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So Krishna is coming to the end of the chapter. There's one more verse which we'll be able to read in a few minutes. And these two verses go together. Krishna, in text 32, which is a very famous verse, Krishna is saying, nobody is barred. Nobody is barred from this process. Now, if you go into the Vedic culture and you say, I wouldn't be able to sit down in a temple and chant the Vedas. I'm not a Brahmin, I wasn't trained, I might have mispronounced something like that. It's very, very strict, you see. But this Bhagavad Gita, what to speak of Lord Chaitanya's movement, which follows from it, is completely ecumenical. There's no bar according to race, religion, age, gender, anything like that. If you're a human being and you have some faith in the process, come to the temple, chant Hare Krishna, listen to Bhagavad Gita class, take some prasadam, and go home. No charge. and no charge, and no, you're not born in a Brahmin family? Sorry. You can't chant the Vedas, I was not born in a Brahmin family. So they laugh at my chanting. Even though I try to chant properly, they say, no, get out. Just like it soon became evident when Prabhupada started his movement, one of the most important cities in India of this movement is Jagannath Puri. We're coming up in a few weeks, is it less than 2 weeks now? To the Los Angeles Rath Yatra. Now that Los Angeles Rath Yatra is modeled after the original Rath Yatra in Puri, which goes back thousands of years. In fact, the very word juggernaut, have you ever heard that? It's a juggernaut, unstoppable force. The football team is a juggernaut, they can't be stopped. That was the English when they saw that Rath Yatra in Puri, because they were ruling India for hundreds of years. And it was like this huge, chariots, and it was going down 1 million people, thousands pulling the. This is like an unstoppable force. It's a juggernaut. No, it's a juggernaut. It became a juggernaut. So that's where that word comes from. So that was central to Lord Chaitanya's life. He spent a lot of time there. The last 12 years, basically not going anywhere else. And he showed the highest levels of intense love for Krishna, a mood of Radharani for Krishna. Lord Chaitanya is a very esoteric figure. We understand from the beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Krishna himself wanted to, it was like 3 reasons. Shri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidrisho Vanayaiva Swadyo Yenad Buddhamadurima Kidrisho Vamadiya Saukyam Chasyam Manonobhavata Kidrisham Veti Loba Tadbhavaja Samajanisha Chi Garbasindo Harindu. So this is one of the, it's called the Mangala Charna. These are verses at the beginning of any major work of literature about bhakti that define the subject matter and offer some benedictions to the readers and things like that. So this verse is describing Krishna's internal desires before he appeared as Lord Chaitanya. They're the same personality, Lord Chaitanya and Krishna, but they're different aspects. So what does this verse say? Shri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidusho, that the glory of Srimati Radharani's love for Krishna. The scene is Krishna's in the spiritual world. He's in Dwarka Leela. And he looked into a mirror-like pillar, or maybe sometimes it's the floor, and he sees the reflection of himself. And he says, "Oh, I've never seen such beauty as this before." He's looking at it. I'd really like to experience that beauty from Radharani's point of view, through, if you will, the lens of her unlimited love. That's really what it is. And and my own glories through the lens of her love. You see what I'm saying? And I also want to feel like what it's like to love me and to be loved by me. It's all very esoteric, far out. So Krishna, he can do whatever he wants. So he decides to come as Lord Chaitanya. This is the internal reason for his coming. From, I don't know, at least from the point when he took sannyas, he was manifesting this personality of Srimati Radharani. When he danced in Rath Yatra, there's some songs that are written there, how he's praying, bringing Krishna back from the city to the Vrindavan. You see, that's the mood. We're going to have a Rath Yatra in less than 10 days now in LA. So you think that you bring Krishna back from Dwarka, or actually from Kurukshetra to Vrindavan. Anyway, it's all very interesting. But the point is, the other side of his motivation for coming was to spread Krishna consciousness for everybody. In other words, there's two things going on. One is this very compassionate, merciful aspect where he's saying, "Here, come and chant." No restriction. Anyone can come and chant, you see. And then when you get tired, finally take some prasadam. And then listen to a little philosophy. And then take rest and get up and go to Mangalarti. And he had these followers, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, who wrote books that codified everything. Srila Prabhupada gave us the essence of them in the Nectar of Devotion, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavad Gita, and Srimad Bhagavatam. So the idea is that it's very ecumenical. And Srila Prabhupada proved that by taking Krishna consciousness all over the world. Before, he had centers in Africa, of course many in India, the United States, South America, everywhere. Wherever there was somebody who was sincere, who was willing to follow the process and try to engage others, then a center would grow up, would start to. So anyway, in these last two verses, let's just study the 32 for a minute. He's saying, Mami Yepisu Papionia. Papionia means those who are born in sinful families, And there's a whole bunch of outcasts who are Kirata, Hunanda, Pulinda, Pukashahabi. These are a list in the second canto of those who are far from the Vedic culture. But if they meet and take shelter of someone who is an intimate associate of Krishna, then they also can be purified and come to the standard of pure devotion. The point is that it's entirely up to us. It's not a question of any prerequisite. If you have, if you're not insane, and if you can speak a language that the books have been translated into, and you can come to a temple and get some good association, then you can begin practicing devotional service. Now, admittedly, there are austerities to perform, because we're so habituated to different activities which really block our understanding of God and feed what we call the false ego, the false sense of self. A basic principle of Krishna consciousness of Bhagavad Gita is first understanding what we actually are. Are we these bodies, or are we something else? And Krishna says, you're something else, ultimately. You're a pure spirit. And he has 20 verses in the second canto from, I think, 11 through 30 that are a lesson on the soul. Beginning with transmigration. Transmigration. Dehi nosmin yata dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatta namuyati. It says, just as in our own bodies, if you just remember back, you see, of course all of us have had a childhood. We all have an earliest memory. I'm not going to say again that Well, if I say it, then I won't be saying it. So, anyway, I can remember, riding a tricycle. Maybe I was 3 years old. That's pretty much what I remember from that time. But we know we were there, right? In other words, we had a life, and we were the same person, same name, like that. Then gradually we grow up, we go to grade school, kindergarten, whatever. And our body changes, our mind changes. We learn to read all these different things, talk, we have emotions, relationships, all this stuff. And so your consciousness is developing and growing, but you're the same person with a different body. And you keep growing, adolescence, and all these things, until you're an old codger like me, 76 years old. But I realize, I'm the same person. But the body has changed. So what hasn't changed? The soul. The irreducible soul. And in Krishna have so many verses describing this, like Avinashi cannot be destroyed. It culminates in this one verse. It kind of summarizes: the Jayate Mriyate Vakadachin Nayam Bhutva Bhavitavanabuya Ajo Nitya Shashvato Yam Purano Nahanyate Hanyamane Sharire. So for the soul, there's never birth nor death. Nor are souls coming into being, or they will not come into being and have come in. We're all as eternal as Krishna. Aja, Nitya, Shashvata, Purana. Aja means unborn, Nitya means eternal, Shashvata means permanent, and Purana means ancient. Ancient. Even before this universe was constructed, we existed. We may not have been conscious, we may be in the body of Vishnu, but we existed. And then the universe is created, and over millions of years, gradually we come out and we take a birth just suitable to our karma from our previous life, which could have been millions of years ago. And we take up our activities again, and we start. And this whole world is like a reformatory. It's like a prison. We can't get out. The very word Durga, which is a name for Maya Devi, who runs this place, Mother Nature, if you will, means a prison. Durga, can't go. Durga, right? Go is to go, and Dur means can't. It's very difficult. So we're trapped here. We don't know that. We think, this is a world for exploiting and living and so forth. And once we're dead, we're dead. No. So just the idea of understanding it and having faith. And also, I just wanted to mention, I remember back when I was working in Back to Godhead magazine, which is practically unknown now, back in the 70s and 80s, there was this one professor somewhere in the South, I forget what state he was in, but he was interested in investigating whether or not there was such a thing as reincarnation. Because he'd heard that, especially in India, but not only in India, there were some children who occasionally they would remember their previous life. And they would say, no, you're not really my mother. My mother is in this village over here, and I did this and this and this. And so I guess in many cases they would just poo-poo it and the kid would get over it. But he went to investigate, and he took down notes, went to the other village, and sure enough, it was for real. In other words, there's empirical evidence of reincarnation. What to speak of past life regression, which sometimes turns out to be true, you can find it. So that's the first thing. There has to be. If we're eternal, then we have to have different lives, because obviously the body's not eternal. So then the question comes, well, what can I do to have the best next life? And then when we inquire from books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, well, the best next life will be one where you can end this process of birth, old age, disease, and death. Birth, old age, disease, and death. This cycle of samsara, it's called. And that's the basic principle of success in what we're doing here, of yoga. Any process of yoga is aimed toward liberation from the cycle of birth and death. But in Krishna consciousness, liberation is kind of a negative term. You're liberated from something, right? Okay, but then what are you doing with that liberated life? So liberation is kind of a byproduct of bhakti, of Krishna consciousness. Because the whole process, here it says in text 32, Tepi Yanti Param Gatim, can attain the supreme destination. The supreme destination is Krishna's home, is his original planet, Krishna Loka, which is far beyond the bounds of birth and death. You don't have a material body. You have a spiritual body, which is already there, but it's covered now. So the whole process of Krishna consciousness is purification and discovery of what's already there. What's the benefit? Well, beyond not taking birth again and dying, you can regain your original nature, which is Sat Chit Ananda, eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. Now, this could also be, someone could say, well, this sounds like a lot of, conspiracy theory or something made up. This can't be true. I know what this is me, no. This is backed up by the line. This is why we always offer our obeisances to our immediate Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, and the whole disciplic succession. Towering intellects and realized souls who have confirmed this, that yes, that there's another way of being, even on this plane, you can experience that plane in your everyday life. And you can be completely, we were just finishing up, we're reading more about Prahlad Maharaj, which is great, this is from thousands of years ago. But he was just a boy, but he was instructed in this science while he was still in the womb. And he comes out and he's a realized soul, but his father doesn't know that, it's a whole thing. His father was this big demon. And he couldn't stand it that his son was a devotee of God. I'm God. That's the whole demonic thing. There's a mantra. There's a very nice passage in the 16th chapter where Krishna pretends to be a demon, and he gives like a verse about it. And there's one famous line. Ishwaroham aham bogi siddhoham balavan sukhi. I am the master, I am the controller, I am the enjoyer, and perfect, powerful, and happy. Now obviously that's pretty stupid, because if you're in a material body, you're not the controller. But this is the illusion that they try to get. This is called hubris. You ever hear of hubris? It's a very expanded false ego. Want to control and like that. So that's the path of suffering, self-destruction. So we want to end all the suffering, which is just due completely to having a material body. We don't belong in these bodies. But because we have them, we can use the facility, the ears, the eyes, the hands, everything that we have, intelligence, for connecting to Krishna in yoga. And it begins with the sound, just like these verses. These are all mantras, actually. These are Krishna speaking. We're actually hearing the words of God and His pure devotee here. This is why these books are so precious, It's not just anybody. I have a Bhagavad Gita. Someone brought me. Did someone loan me you? Okay, Baxter. You have to return that Bhagavad Gita. It was. It's not. There's not one line of commentary in there. I think it's just a translation. And I remember it reminded me of when I first started searching. When I was 20 or so back in New York, and it was in the 60s, and there was a lot of ferment and expansion, LSD, all this stuff. So I picked up a Bhagavad Gita. It was a little paperback, the Penguin edition, and it was just like that. It's just the translation, and it's very short. There's only 700 sentences in here. I mean, in the translation. So if it was, you can imagine how small that would be without the Sanskrit and all the commentary. So I read it, and I said, that's pretty fascinating, but I had no idea what to do. The whole idea, it's normative. At the end, here he's saying, in the next verse, just engage your mind in me, always think of me, become my devotee, you'll certainly come to me. There's instruction. You can accept it or not, but because if you do this in the right, then you'll come to me, and you won't take birth again, and you'll be reinstated in your original life. So the point here is that Krishna is now coming to the end, and he's saying there's no restriction. One can be a lower birth, women, because women traditionally are thought to be, not as eligible as men, but it doesn't. It's women. It's no problem. Merchants, Shudras, or others, you can attain the supreme destination. You will attain the supreme destination. Who take shelter in me? And how does that happen? Well, really, it happens by taking shelter of someone who has already taken shelter. I think I mentioned this verse. Some of you may. This is a verse in the Bhagavatam exalting the association of pure devotees of Krishna. It says even a moment's that association is more valuable than going to heaven, getting impersonal liberation. Na punar bhavam means not taking birth again. What to speak of some material benediction. Why is it so valuable? Because by that a few moments association, the seed of devotion can be planted. The seed of devotion, meaning that faith. Okay, let me try it. Let me try it. This person seems to be so nice, and I see the followers are so nice. It's interesting philosophy. Let me try this chanting. Or you just come to the kirtan and you take part, you see. That's the first step. And that has a tremendous effect. Krishna understands, oh, they're chanting my name? You know? There's a verse that's describing that. Shrinvatam Sukata Krishna Punya Shabana Kirtanak Ridyandaksto Abhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. When Krishna understands that we're sincerely hearing about him and receiving the message, then he's within each of our hearts. This is a very encouraging thing. God is with us at every moment. He's in our hearts. And he's giving us, just like he's also in the hearts of the dogs and the cats and the insects. And they also have a rudimentary brain, you know, and they need, so he's giving them, go here, do that. We call it instinct, but it's really the super soul that's providing the intelligence. So in our case, he provides remembrance, knowledge, forgetfulness, and so he's with us at all times. So when he says, oh, they're hearing about me from the right source, genuine things, then from within he cleanses away what is anartas, which are obstructions to our understanding ourselves and God. You see? He's in there. Vidunoti Surit. Vidunoti means to cleanse. Suritsatam, because he's the best friend. The Surit means intimate friend of the devotees. And even if we're just beginning devotees, he'll help us. So this is a very wonderful thing. If you want to become a champion, Olympian weightlifter, God's not going to especially help you with that. That's not, you know, I mean, you'll have to do it all on your own, you know. That's not, but anything you do that is genuinely geared to bringing you closer to him and is following the process, he'll say, oh, let me arrange for this person to continue as best he can. So they can come to me. What to speak of? Then he goes to the verse we read today. Brahmins. Brahmins are the head of society. They're more spiritual. Pious Brahmins. Bhakta, my devotees. You see? What to speaks of the righteous Brahmins, the devotees, and the saintly kings. Rajarshi. Rajarshi is a combination of two words, Raja and Rishi. Rishis are sages, Raja is kings. So when you got a Rajarshi, you got a king who's also a saint. He can do wonders for the society, you can imagine. So these are, what to speak of them in this world. Now, Sanskrit is such a wonderful language. There's a verse in Sanskrit, which I forgot, which describes this. It's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The translation is, essential truth spoken concisely is true eloquence. And that phrase itself is eloquent, because it's essential truth spoken concisely. So here, Sanskrit is full of that. Anityam asukham lokam. This world, loka, is not permanent, and it's full of miseries. Now, admittedly, there are sometimes happy things that happen, you know. But those pleasurable things are ultimately, this is a quote from Prabhupada, the worst enemy of the soul, because they induce you to keep trying to arrange this material world so you'll be happy and peaceful. But ultimately, we all fail, just because of the passage of time. When I first came here, which is in '89, just about this time of year, the end of July, it's about 35 years exactly. First thing I looked up was where the San Andreas Fault comes. Are we on the San Andreas Fault? You know, and I found that down here, because it goes pretty much along the coast, the famous earthquake took place. I don't know when, you know, in San Francisco, due to the San Andreas Fault, very powerful. So I said, well, how close am I to that fault? You know, because it can happen at any time. So I found that at this point in the geography, it's a little bit east of us. It's not exact. We're not actually sitting on it so bad. So that was a little bit encouraging, you know. But sure enough, there was a pretty serious earthquake here one time. I'm chanting upstairs where the ashram is now. We used to have this gift shop, so you could go up there and chant your rounds in the morning. So I was chanting upstairs, and suddenly, whoa, what's happening to the floor, you know? So I ran out the door. I should have run toward the deities, but I wasn't so advanced. I ran out the door, and I was on the sidewalk, and I'm still on a surfboard. You know, whoa, this is, but that's as bad as it got. I saw, we had a different set of chandeliers. I looked in the temple, and they were rocking back and forth, you know. That was the most, but you can imagine, you know, I mean, in LA, I wasn't there at this time, but I heard what happened. It was '94. They had a serious earthquake. And you see that little pillar there? That's onyx. That is was a leftover, because San Diego and LA were kind of sisters, that came. They had I was there when they put it in. It was a couple of $100,000 to remake the whole temple inside. They had these big onyx areas, and so it was pretty amazing. The floor was redone. So it was 94. I don't know exact the time, and this was a serious earthquake, and it was everyone was gathered for Mangalarti. It was 4:30. They maybe had 60 devotees there, and the conch shell blew, the curtains opened, and everyone bowed down, and they went to the middle hall and bowed down. And when they hit the middle of it, there's this huge earthquake, and all that onyx came crashing down. And if they had been a few seconds earlier, and the devotees were at the edge of the temple, there would have been serious injury. But no one was injured. But it was pretty traumatic, and I think it went on for enough time where at that point, I think they evacuated the deities, and it was the whole thing. So this is what the material world is. Anything can happen at any time to completely shake up your thing, So this is one of the principles of devotional service, is that the central principle is whatever is the most prominent thought in your mind when the body is broken or just dies on its own, that will determine your future. That is the template. The thoughts and desires that you've cultivated in your life is the template for your next body. Now, if you have no tinge of devotional service or yoga, and it's all simply been on the material plane, then you're probably committing all kinds of sins you don't even know. Who knew? I remember when McDonald's started, like in the 60s, I forget what year it was. But we used to go bowling, and soon there was this nice hamburger place where we go bowling. Okay, we'll get some cheeseburger and fries before we go in. And I remember thought, oh, this is a grievous sin. No, nobody saw it like that. But it's adding up. What about those poor cows? And you're contributing to it, and that's the part of that's taken into account. So this is what this world is. It is anityam and asukham. It's temporary. That's a big thing, and it's full of misery. As one of my favorite verses, you've probably heard. Yehi sangsvarjita boga dukkha yonaya evate adyantabantam konteya nateshu ramate Buddha. Buddha means the intelligent person. So what he's saying is that sangsvarjita boga, the enjoyment of that born. Well, here's the official translation: the intelligent person does not take part in the pleasures that arise from the contact of the senses with their sense objects. O son of Kunti, Arjuna, such pleasures are the sources of all miseries and have a beginning and an end. And so the wise do not take part in it. This idea that it's a nityam, however pleasurable something may be, it's obviously you can only enjoy it for a limited amount of time. Then it ends, right? So that's and then what does it leave? It leaves a desire to enjoy it again. See, you planted a strong desire in your heart to enjoy it again. And if at the time of death, those desires will come out and bring you back into another material body to try to enjoy it again. But your karma is also taken into account, and it's all very complicated. But the basic point is that due to your attachments to this world, you'll come back again in some form, material form, in order to try to enjoy it again. And that's the basic problem of the living entities. We don't belong here. This Satchidananda life means eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. Now our life is temporary, full of ignorance and full of misery. Okay, I understand. Sometimes it's not so miserable. You could enjoy yourself. But the verse in the 5th chapter says Prabhupada says it famously in the purport, that little happiness you enjoy is your worst enemy. Because it keeps you on the material plane. So here he's saying if someone, no matter who it is, doesn't matter what, if you take shelter of me, vyapashritya, this is the key thing, take shelter of me through my representative or directly, you will come to me if you fully take shelter. What to speak of if you're a Brahman? Brahman are those who are clean, who are spiritual, who are intelligent. The pious Brahmins, the righteous Brahmins, they will certainly come to me. What to speak of the devotees or the saintly kings? Anityam sukham lokam. See, this temporary unhappy world, having come here, take shelter of me. Imam prapya bhajasvamam. having come to the temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. And I'm going to read the last verse because this is a really key verse. And it kind of wraps up the whole chapter, which is the most confidential knowledge, and it's repeated in the 18th chapter. Any verse that's repeated is very important. So first, any questions, comments on what we've covered so far? Basically, Krishna is encouraging us now, take up this bhakti process. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishasi yuktvaivam atmanam matparayanaha. Engage your mind always in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me, and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. Purport. In this verse, it is clearly indicated that Krishna consciousness is the only means of being delivered from the clutches of this contaminated material world. Sometimes unscrupulous commentators distort the meaning of what is clearly stated here, that all devotional service should be offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Unfortunately, unscrupulous commentators divert the mind of the reader to that which is not at all feasible. Such commentators do not know that there is no difference between Krishna's mind and Krishna. Krishna is not an ordinary human being. He is the absolute truth. His body, his mind, and he himself are one and absolute. It is stated in the Kurma Purana, as it is quoted by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami in his Anubhashya, means commentary, on the Chaitanya Charitamrita, 5th chapter, Adi Lila, verse 41 to 48. Deha dehi vibhedo yam neshware vidyate kvachit. This means that there is no difference in Krishna, the Supreme Lord, between himself and his body. But because the commentators do not know this science of Krishna, they hide Krishna and divide his personality from his mind or from his body. Although this is sheer ignorance of the science of Krishna, some men make profit out of misleading people. There are some who are demoniac or demonic. They also think of Krishna, but enviously, just like King Kamsa, Krishna's uncle. He was also thinking of Krishna always, but he thought of Krishna as his enemy. He was always in anxiety, wondering when Krishna would come to kill him. That kind of thinking will not help us. One should be thinking of Krishna in devotional love. That is bhakti. One should cultivate the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. What is that favorable, one should cultivate the knowledge of Krishna continuously. What is that favorable cultivation? It is to learn from a bona fide teacher. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we have several times explained that his body is not material, but is eternal, blissful knowledge. This kind of talk about Krishna will help one become a devotee. Understanding Krishna otherwise from the wrong source will prove fruitless. One should therefore engage his mind in the eternal form, the primal form of Krishna. With conviction in his heart that Krishna is the Supreme, he should engage himself in worship. There are hundreds of thousands of temples in India for the worship of Krishna, and devotional service is practiced there. When such practice is made, one has to offer obeisances to Krishna. One should lower his head before the deity and engage his mind, his body, his activities, everything. That will make one fully absorbed in Krishna without deviation. This will help one transfer to Krishna Loka. One should not be deviated by unscrupulous commentators. One must engage in the 9 different processes of devotional service, beginning with hearing and chanting about Krishna. Pure devotional service is the highest achievement of human society. The 7th and 8th chapters of the Bhagavad Gita have explained pure devotional service to the Lord that is free from speculative knowledge, mystic yoga, and fruitive activities. Those who are not purely sanctified may be attracted by different features of the Lord, like the impersonal Brahmajyoti and localized Paramatma. But a pure devotee directly takes to the service of the Supreme Lord. There is a beautiful poem about Krishna in which it is clearly stated that any person who is engaged in the worship of demigods is most unintelligent and cannot achieve at any time the supreme award of Krishna. The devotee in the beginning may sometimes fall from the standard, but still he should be considered superior to all other philosophers and yogis. One who always engages in Krishna consciousness should be understood to be a perfectly saintly person. His accidental non-devotional activities will diminish, and he will soon be situated, without any doubt, in complete perfection. The pure devotee has no actual chance to fall down, because the Supreme Godhead personally takes care of his pure devotees. Therefore, the intelligent person should take directly to the process of Krishna consciousness and happily live in this material world. He will eventually receive the supreme award of Krishna. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 9th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the most confidential knowledge. So, what I'm going to do is, I think we're going to review this chapter tomorrow, because it really deserves it. But just to wrap up, this is a key verse that appears almost verbatim in the 18th chapter. And it's interesting that this is called the most confidential knowledge. And you always say, well, how confidential is it? I mean, we're distributing books by the millions. You know, is it really confidential? Well, it is confidential, because it means that it's not a secret as such. We're not keeping it secret, but it is the most essential knowledge, and the danger is that we just categorize it as one. This is another form of yoga, and but this is actually the whole essence of the process here. Man mana, in those 3 syllables, you practically have the essence of Krishna consciousness. Think of Krishna. How to think of Krishna? Why do we need to learn? Why do we need to be encouraged to Krishna? Because we have a million different things that we think about that take us a million miles from Krishna. And the very name Krishna, I was sharing, was I tell you that? The word, there's a very beautiful verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita describing what Krishna means, the 2 syllables. Krishi bhu vachika kshabdo naschanirva divachika tayararkam param brahma Krishna itya vidiyate. The very syllable Krish is the all attract. Krish means to pull, like Karshadi, you see? So the Krish syllable is all of Krishna's attractive features. The beauty, the pastimes, everything about Krishna that's attractive. And a nirvati, nascha nirvati vachika, means the pleasure, the transcendental bliss that Krishna is experiencing that we can also take part in. So you combine them together, Tayar Aikyam Param Brahma. Those 2 syllables together are the Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Absolute Truth, known as Krishna. Krishna Epidiyate. So that we don't realize, the mysticism here, the spiritual power that's in the sound of Krishna's name. It is said, and this is completely inconceivable, I don't even pretend to understand how this works, that Krishna is non-different from his name. If you actually chant and hear, no matter what else you're doing, but you have to hear with great attention, then you'll be experiencing the presence of God in that sound. And all of the features can be there. You can eventually see first come the realization of the name, the form, the qualities, and the pastimes. When you think about it, everyone is defined by that. You have a name, you have a form, you have something you do, right? And you have your qualities. It's nice and not so nice, this, that, whatever, So it all begins with that sound. Krishna is completely there in the name, Krishna. And that's why it was so effective. When Prabhupada started the movement, he had some philosophy, but basically he was chanting. And because, it was amazing, he goes to the Bowery, it's in the Bowery, which is not a nice place to be. But it just so happened that at that time, especially, there were many musicians who would rent these big rooms, which in the Bowery they had these big things at the top. And one of them was Mukunda, Michael Grant, who was a professional musician and was also interested in God. And before long, Prabhupada was having these beautiful kirtans, and they would bring their little instruments, And so being absorbed in that, and you're experiencing, there's an experience there. You're more peaceful, you're more happy, you're friendly, whatever, you're able to forget something troubling you. And so a certain percentage became serious, learned the philosophy, and became very serious in chanting. So that's manmana. and become my devotee. So that's the first step. Think about Krishna, associate with devotees, and then there's a whole 9 process of hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, you see. All of them are present in this temple. Become my devotee. Madhyaji, worship me and offer obeisances to me. Recognize your eternal servitorship. Then you will certainly come to me. Mamai Vaishyasi, you'll come to me, being linked to me. Yukvaivam, this is the yoga. Atmanam matparayana. Your soul will devoted to me, will become devoted to me. So this verse really encapsulates the whole process of devotional service. And in the 18th chapter, he has a little, second line is a little different. It says, Manmanabha madakto mudjati manoskri mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. Just think of me, become devoted, worship me, and bow down low. You come to me, O friend, I promise you this boon I shall bestow. So there, Krishna expresses his friendship for Arjuna, but we can also become Krishna's friend in this way. And then the final verse of Krishna's instructions, Sarva Dharma Patajaja. All of these other dharmas I spoke, forget about it. Just do this one thing. Sarva Dharma Patajaja mame kam sharanam braja aham tvam savapapabhyo mokshiyasyami mashrucha. Just give up all, reject all dharmas and surrender only unto me. Your sins will nullify, O Arjuna, from anxiety be free. So he's saying, don't worry about anything else. Just surrender to me, become my devotee. Now Arjuna is already his devotee. He's giving us the instruction. And as far as your sins, which are due to give you a lot of pain in the next life or later in this life, it's karma. It says, I eradicate it all. You'll be completely free. And you will come to me in the spiritual world. So, but that surrendering process has to be done in the proper way through his representative and so many things. But basically, we're unsurrendered. We want to be the master, but we're not the master. And ultimately, we get cut down by the material energy. And but if we follow the process that Krishna has given and has been explained and exemplified by his pure devotees, then we can make our life successful. There's actually a mission to human life. And that is attainment of regaining our original swarup, regaining our original form, which is eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss, and returning back home, back to Godhead. To resume our original relationship with Krishna, his pastimes. We can read it in the Krishna book, and just all delightful pastimes. I mean, it's so logical when you think about it. If you were God, what would you do? Wouldn't you want to play all day? Or would you want to go to work to some horrible job and everything? I mean, I want to play all day, okay, with my friends, enjoying various wonderful relationships. So how does this whole world come about? He delegates, he expands. Okay, I've got to create everything. There's Mahavishnu over there, he can do that. And I'll just be able to play. And I'll never get old. Nobody will get old. And we'll just have a variety of play. Ever fresh, ever new, That's what's happening in the spiritual world. So let's keep investigating it, and the process is very simple, to begin chanting. And yes, there are some don'ts, do's and don'ts. Do chant Hare Krishna, do come to the temple, and do prepare your food with vegetarian, you can learn how to do it and offer it and all these things. And don't eat any meat. You don't need it. Don't need it. I've been a vegetarian for 54 years. I'm doing all right at 76, And then so it's absolutely unnecessary. And so no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, and no intoxication. Now those may be a little difficult, but there's a price to pay, but it's worth it. And after some time, you can't even imagine it. It's not like, if I can only have a hamburger. Are you kidding? It's just like abominable to even think. It's not necessary. Once you've tasted the pakoras and you've tasted the sabjis, and it's no need. So anyway, that's what this is about, and this is a very important chapter, a key chapter, and but it's not the end of the chapter, and we're going to begin the next chapter tomorrow, the opulence of the Absolute, which has the 4 key verses of the Bhagavad Gita. And since we're almost out of time, I'll give you a little poem, but it'll be really small. So it says, don't waste this precious human life, dear friend, by working hard for fleeting happiness. Through bhakti yoga, worldly life transcend and learn to taste divine love's endless bliss. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.